But happening today, Biden's former chief of staff, Ron Klain, is set to testify as part of the GOP probe into Biden's mental acuity. Klain will be the sixth witness to testify and the third to do so voluntarily. Meanwhile, all three subpoenaed witnesses have pleaded the fifth.
I must respectfully decline to answer based on the physician-patient privilege and reliance on my right under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer the question pursuant to my Fifth Amendment rights under the Constitution.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer the question pursuant to my Fifth Amendment rights under the Constitution.
My View host, Lara Trump, joins us now. Hey, Lara.
Hey, good morning, Ainsley.
Good morning. I think they have some questions about not only his mental acuity, but also the Autopen. And this was interesting. Lara Trump, Ashley Williams, they did come in voluntarily. And Ron Klain, we think, is going to talk. Listen to this soundbite from James Comer, and I'll get your reaction.
He has not been subpoenaed. He came in voluntarily, so he can't plead the fifth. And, all the arrows point towards him as being one of the main players, if not the main player, in the Autopen scandal. He's one of the last men standing in this, and I think he'll answer questions.
All right, Lara, what do you think he'll talk about? What will he say?
Well, look, when you talk about a White House chief of staff, that was his job with Joe Biden. This is the person, Ainsley, who is arguably the closest to the president, who sees the president sometimes more than their own spouse. You know, every meeting this person is in, you are in on those meetings, you're in on the phone calls. So if you want to talk about someone who would be able to give you an accurate depiction of the mental acuity of the president of the United States, it would likely be the White House chief of staff. Now, you talk about the people who've already come in and how they've all pled the fifth. That is a way to, of course, protect yourself from any self-incrimination. The only one, actually, not to plead the fifth and to talk was their first witness. It was Lara Trump. But I think it's interesting that James Comer says that we may get some information here from Ron Klain. Of course, at the end of this, what they're trying to establish is, was Joe Biden in any mental fitness to give authority to use an Autopen on executive orders, on pardons? And I actually interviewed James Comer, the chairman of the House Oversight Committee, who we heard from just there. I interviewed him for my show this weekend. And what he told me is that if they can establish that Joe Biden was not mentally fit, they can then take that information to a court. And a court could say, you know what, those executive orders and those pardons signed via Autopen do not hold up. This is a really interesting time, and I think what Ron Klain says today will hold a lot of weight. You don't forget, from 2021 to 2023, he was the person most likely with Joe Biden most of the time, and he would have a full depiction of his mental abilities.
So before the debate, he tells Chris Whipple what happened. He said that Joe Biden was exhausted and out of it in the days before the debate. He said just 25 minutes into a mock session, Lara, that Biden was done for the day. He said, "I'm just too tired to continue. I'm afraid of losing my voice here, and I feel bad." And then he went straight to bed. But then you have Hunter Biden saying he had a bad debate because of Ambien. Right after the debate, the Biden family said it was because he was sick. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we all know, Ainsley, that Joe Biden was not the same Joe Biden of the decade before that. We all saw his mental decline with our very eyes. We saw during the campaign in 2020 that he was not the same. And we saw progressively it got worse, that he couldn't stay upright on a bike. He was, stumbling up the stairs to Air Force One. And then we saw him on that debate stage. And it was sad. Honestly, it was a sad thing as an American to watch our president, the person who's the commander in chief, not able to make coherent sentences and form them together. So I think they can try to make excuse after excuse. I think it was very clear that Joe Biden's time was up. And quite frankly, I think we are lucky as a country nothing worse happened under his tenure as president.
Okay, well, Senator Alyssa Slotkin was interviewed by Axios and has been talking recently about the divide in the Democratic Party. Listen to what she said.
There are people who are very moderate who believe he's an existential threat. There are people who are very progressive who are like, let's not do anything and wait for bad things to happen. And I'm in camp one. Like, this is Trump 2 is different than Trump 1 in many, many ways every single day.
So they are divided. She's saying it's either they think that Donald Trump is an existential threat or he's bad but survivable. which makes me laugh because every single day, Lara, we talk about the wins. We see the tariffs, we see border security, fighting these Ivy League schools, and he won with Columbia. AI, helping to release some of the hostages. What do you say?
Absolutely. The problem the Democrats have is they cannot fight back against all the great things that Donald Trump is doing. And they are broken up into several different factions because, Ainsley, they don't have a leader. We talk about this time and time again. They have no coherent message. They have no leader. And because of that, you have some people who want to scream that the sky is falling. You have other people who say, maybe we ought to focus on ourselves. My advice to them is maybe they ought to start making a little more sense and the American people would take them seriously again.
Okay, Lara, great to see you. Thank you so much.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.